Good afternoon and good evening, everybody. It's Steve Lookner with Right Side Broadcasting coming to you with breaking news. White House Chief Economic Advisor Gary Cohn has resigned. There was some speculation this might happen ever since President Trump last week announced that he was going to put into place new tariffs on steel and aluminum. Gary Cohn does not like the idea of new tariffs. He opposes this tariff. He strongly opposes this tariff proposal, and there was speculation as to whether Gary Cohn might resign. I know there were reports out there that said the tariff was a red line for Gary Cohn. So maybe now I have no confirmation that this was the issue that made Gary Cohn resign, but in the absence of anything else, that seems the best assumption right now, that is what has led Gary Cohn to resign. Not a lot of information yet on this story. Here's, for example, the latest from NBC News. National Economic Council Director Gary Cohn is leaving the administration, the White House said. The departure following months of rumors which intensified after Trump backed Cohn's counsel against new tariffs, bucked Cohn's counsel against new tariffs, comes just the latest in a string of exits from top officials at the White House. The former Goldman Sachs broke banker was critical in working on the administration's enacted tax reform package, with President Donald Trump praising him for doing a superb job in driving our agenda, helping to deliver historic tax cuts and reforms, and unleashing the American economy once again. So that's a quote from before. So I don't even know if there's an official White House statement on this yet. Let me see if I can find something for you. So really not a lot of details at this point. On this resignation. Just the news is out that he is resigning. See what else I can dig up here on this. Here is the New York Times, what they're reporting. They say White House officials said he's resigning. The officials insisted there was no single factor behind the departure of Mr. Cohn, who heads the National Economic Council, but his decision to leave came after he seemed poised to lose an internal struggle amid a Wild West-style process over Mr. Trump's plan to impose large tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. Oh, and there is a statement from President Trump here about Gary Cohn, about his resigning, that he made to the New York Times. It says, Gary has been my chief economic advisor and did a superb job in driving our agenda, helping to deliver historic tax cuts and reforms and unleashing the American economy once again. He is a rare talent, and I thank him for his dedicated service to the American people. Now, this says he's expected to leave in the coming weeks, because it's been reporting he has resigned, but I guess the resignation doesn't take place immediately. He's expected to leave in the coming weeks. Oh, and we have a statement from Gary Cohn, too. In a statement, Mr. Cohn said he had been pleased to work on pro-growth economic policies to benefit the American people, in particular the passage of a historic tax reform. White House officials said that Mr. Cohn was leaving on cordial terms with the president and that they plan to continue discussing policy even after his departure. And the New York Times says, yet the departure of Mr. Cohn, a free trade-oriented Democrat who fended off a number of nationalist-minded policies during his year in the Trump administration, could have a ripple effect on the president's economic decisions and on the financial sector. Even the mere threat last August that Mr. Cohn might leave sent the financial markets tumbling. And as we were saying before, Mr. Trump's announcement last week that he would levy tariffs on aluminum and steel imports was the most immediate catalyst for Mr. Cohn's departure, according to people familiar with his thinking. Mr. Cohn, a longtime proponent of free trade, believed the decision could jeopardize economic growth. So, Gary Cohn resigning as President Trump's chief economic advisor. What do you think about this? Give me a shout on Twitter, @Lookner on Twitter. Let me know what you think. We're going to read some of your comments on the air. Thank you to Guinevere and Roger Vega for moderating this broadcast, and Common Sense and Gleno moderating on the website, and JC moderating too. Thank you. See if anybody wrote in yet with comments. Kelly writes in, bye. Cohn was the reason Wall Street kept the tax breaks, and he is a globalist. John Hill writes in, been expecting that. Let me know what you think about this. Write to me on Twitter, @Lookner. I'm just going to see here if I can get you any updates. This just came out in the last few minutes. And what we have is we have sort of this as we just saw, there's like a statement from President Trump and a statement from Gary Cohn, and they're kind of typical boilerplate statements. Gary did a great job. I was happy to serve President Trump, those kind of things. But I want to see if there's any more news being reported about this. And he is not, he resigned, but he's not leaving the White House immediately. He's expected to leave in the next few weeks. Now, one question I have is this literally over the tariffs thing? Like, did Gary Cohn say, I am definitely leaving if you impose these tariffs? Or is this something that Gary Cohn had been thinking about for a while and this kind of pushed him over the edge, but it wasn't all about the tariffs? So how much of this is about the tariffs? I don't know. Dingle, our viewer Dingle writes, and he says, I wanted Gary Goldman Sachs Cohn out when he failed to back Trump during Charlottesville. So Dingle, our viewers, sent me this clip of this article, which is an article from CNBC saying Gary Cohn says Trump's Charlottesville reaction put enormous pressure on him to resign. Cohn told the Financial Times he was under enormous pressure to resign following the president's reaction to violent protests in Charlottesville. He also told the Financial Times, I will not allow neo-Nazis ranting Jews will not replace us to cause this Jew to leave his job. He also said, citizens standing up for equality and freedom can never be equated with white supremacist neo-Nazis and the KKK. Thank you for writing in, Dingle. Let me know what you think about this. By the way, if you message me on Periscope, it's a little hard for me to see your comments because they go by so fast. I kind of want to check and see, is there a way I can see the Periscope comments after the fact? Hang on, I'm trying to figure this out right now. Let's see here. No, that doesn't help me. That doesn't help me. I'll have to figure this out after. I don't want to pause the whole stream, so I figure we just started doing Periscope broadcasting a couple weeks ago, or actually like a week ago. So we're kind of still figuring out how to go out to all these places at once. Let's see if the USA Today has anything new. They have very little news. Here's the USA Today article, 2 paragraphs. This is a tweet from Hallie Jackson. She says, from MSNBC, worth noting, White House has now developed a fairly organized system for announcing departures. As Monica Alba points out, last week, Raphael Hicks and now Cohn, it's been scooped to a news outlet, today was the New York Times, and soon after shared more widely with quotes from key principals and more background. And I was like wondering, who is Raffle? So this was Josh Raffle, senior communications aide. He left the White House a couple weeks ago. If you have comments on Gary's Cohn resigning, give me a shout on Twitter, @Lookner, @LOOKNER. Also, be sure if you like these live news updates, subscribe to us on YouTube, click the notifications bell, and follow us on Facebook at Right Side Broadcasting, on Twitter at RSB Network, and on Periscope, RSBN TV. Sen Surf says, thanks for the news update, getting back to work. Thank you, Sen Surfs, for watching. So again, right now, all we know is that Gary Cohn is resigning. Best guess is that it has a lot to do with the tariffs that President Trump has decided to put on steel and aluminum. At least it looks like he's going to. Oh, this is quite interesting. What is this? This is quite interesting. This is from Axios' Dan Premack. He says, Jonathan Swan says, Trump has canceled a meeting with companies that use steel and aluminum that Cohn was arranging. So Cohn was arranging this meeting where people who were against the tariffs could come, like companies that use steel and aluminum could come and talk to Trump and try to talk him out of the tariffs. But Trump has canceled that meeting now. That's quite interesting. See if Axios has anything in their story that's new. Gary Cohn to quit White House. Fine. Why it matters, per Axios' Jonathan Swan. Jonathan Swan from Axios says, there's now a grand total of 0 people inside the West Wing with heft to take the anti-tariff fight to the president. Trump has canceled a meeting with companies that use steel and aluminum that Cohn was arranging. And it looks like a couple of White House officials are upset about this. Jonathan Swan says a text from the White House official he got says R.I.P. and then a picture of the Earth. So I'm guessing that is maybe a White House official who is not very big a fan of Trump or just not a fan of tariffs. And you can see another text from a White House official there to Jonathan Swan. I don't know who these White House officials are, but clearly a couple of White House officials are not on board with the tariff policy. It's a bit odd to me that White House officials would be working in the White House and then texting Jonathan Swan these texts with the understanding that Jonathan Swan was allowed to cut and paste the text and post them, even without giving a name. I'm guessing that's probably annoying to people in the White House who support President Trump and support the tariffs because they don't like having these texts come out, these negative texts come out while the story is being announced. But that's interesting that that's happened. Now, hang on one second here. Jeff Zeleny from CNN, he says President Trump became angry at Gary Cohn's resistance on trade over the last 24 to 48 hours. A person close to the matter says, the resignation happened in the last day. Trade was the last straw, a person says. Vika Varkosh, one of our viewers, writes in and says, you never go against your boss's decisions. Trump needs people who support his agenda. CNBC Now reports stock futures point to sharply lower opening after Wall Street-friendly Cohn resigns. By the way, I saw one tweet. I have seen numerous people pronounce his name as Cohn. I saw one tweet that said it's Gary Cohn, which I haven't heard, but I sort of want to check now. Kind of hard for me to check, though, while I'm on the air. Here's what I'll do. Hang on, I'm going to check this while I'm on the air. I have a plan. Hang on. I'm going to listen to this for a second. Yeah, see, I'm watching a video right now from CNBC, and they say Cohn. So I don't know what this person was doing, posting that it's Cohen. Everybody I've seen pronounce it as Cohn. Anyways. Yeah, people in the chat room are saying Cohn too. I don't know why that person was posting that. All right, if you have more comments on Gary Cohn's resignation, give me a shout on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. Once again, Gary Cohn, Chief Economic Advisor for President Trump, is resigning. And if you like this coverage, if you like having a place to go to for breaking news that's not one of the big networks, we do things a little differently here, please consider donating to Right Side Broadcasting, because we are viewer supported. We rely on you to stay on the air. If you'd like to donate, you can go to the bottom of the YouTube chat and click on the $ at the bottom of the YouTube chat. Or you can go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. Thank you again to our moderators who are moderating the chat room right now. Let's see here. Our viewer Kenneth Foof writes in, Steve, interesting that Cohn started his career at the U.S. Steel Home Products Division in Cleveland, Ohio. I didn't know that. But I'm guessing if we go to his Wikipedia page, it says it. Cohn started his career at the U.S. Steel Home Products Division in Cleveland, Ohio. There you go. Does Wikipedia have his resignation? Yes, they already have it on the Wikipedia. Ryan writes in, he stood against most things the president campaigned on, another globalist gone. L.J. Jackson made a donation, said thank you to all the moderators tirelessly working and keeping it great. Yeah, we really appreciate our moderators. They volunteer their time to keep the YouTube chat and the website chat a safe place to chat. Guinevere, JC, Jan, Real Frank, Roger Vega, all moderating. Common Sense and Gleno on the website. Periscope is still the Wild West of chat rooms, so behave everybody in Periscope. Miss Jensen writes in, America elected President Trump to fix America's problems. Unfair trade was a big part of his campaign. Employees of the White House need to be loyal to the president's agenda. Let's see here. Just seeing if there's any more updates here on the Gary Cohn story, aside from the details we've already told you. Let's see what this one is. Hang on. Every time I open a page now, I have to watch out because these autoplay videos play. So let's see if the Fox News article has anything new. Cohn is resigning. He opposed the tariffs on steel and aluminum. We talked about that. He's going to resign at a date to be determined in the next few weeks. We talked about that. We read Gary Cohn's statement. We read Trump's statement. Chief of Staff John Kelly said Cohn served his country with great distinction and dedicated his skill and leadership to grow the U.S. economy and pass historic tax reform. Over the summer, Cohn reportedly drafted a resignation letter following the president's response to the violence in Charlottesville. Let's look at that story. This was from Fox as well. This is from last August about Gary Cohn drafting a resignation letter after President Trump's reaction to Charlottesville. He spoke out about his concerns with the administration's response to the Charlottesville, Virginia violence. As we talked about earlier. P-Cell writes in, separating the wheat from the chaff. You can't just resign because you disagree with your commander-in-chief. Some of these folks won't even last a day in the military. But it's all good. The president will know who's loyal and who's not. It is interesting, if it's true that Gary Cohn essentially resigned over the tariffs, why this in particular? Was this like the first big thing he disagreed with President Trump on economically that Trump went ahead with? Or is it that this issue in particular is a super important issue to Gary Cohn? And why did he, even if he was against this, why not stay on and push for his agenda and other economic issues? Or to Gary Cohn, what about this issue was it for Gary Cohn? It's an interesting question. Did he think that this issue had so much importance, or did he think that something about the process went through in this issue? Did maybe he felt he wasn't listened to at all in this process and that he wasn't going to be listened to at all in the future? The announcement President Trump made was kind of sudden. Reportedly, a lot of people in the White House didn't know President Trump was going to be making it. So maybe Gary Cohn, it wasn't so much the policy decided on, it was the process, and maybe he felt he was left out of the process and didn't feel he was going to be part of the process in the future. Just make sure the sound's working okay. President Trump was going to be meant to do that before. All right, it is. David Ops writes in our viewer, the president should have people that support him, but also listen to different points of view too. And the president has said this. So, some people are writing in saying advisors should agree with the president, but the president did say today in his press conference, he said, I like having conflict. I like hearing different views and then deciding from them. So the president himself has said he wants different views in his administration. Well, and again, BNO News also reporting, we talked about this before, Dow futures fall more than 325 points on news that Gary Cohn, Trump's top economic advisor, is resigning. You know what I'm going to do? I really want to try. I bet it's not going to work. I'm going to try to figure out. What is this? When we get off the air, I'm going to try to figure out how to see if I can during the broadcast. See, because I know some people post to us on Periscope and those fly by and I can't even see them once they've flown by. So I'll try to see if there's a way I can easily read all the comments at once. I haven't even gone to the Facebook chat yet. I have to do that and see what people are saying in the Facebook chat. I haven't even checked it one time. Let me check the Facebook chat. Shush. Teresa Rice in the Facebook chat says, this is what this country needs. He says he's a businessman and that is what this country needs. I don't know if you're talking about Trump or Cohn. So I'm just looking over the Facebook chat right now. Ruth Jensen in the chat room says, Gary Cohn is not the president. If he does not like the president's policy, he can resign, and he did. I'm going to make a last call for comments here. If you have comments, get them in now. Write to me if you have comments on Gary Cohn resigning at Lookner on Twitter. And also, I will, if I hear more news about this, I will definitely post it on my Twitter. I post about breaking news all the time. You can follow me on Twitter at Lookner, at Lookner. And Right Side Broadcasting on Twitter is at RSB Network. American Patriot says, I don't understand why these steel and aluminum tariffs are detrimental to the economy. Wouldn't that help increase employment and lower costs by our own manufacturing of these products? Well, the theory is that if we increase tariffs, then other countries will increase tariffs. And a lot of prices, first of all, is if you have different countries increasing their tariffs, you're going to have prices overall for everyone go up. So that's a way it could harm the economy. If there's inflation, we can afford less. But another thing is that, without getting too much into economic theory, the basic idea of why free trade is supposed to help is something called comparative advantage. And the idea is you make as a country what you're most efficient at making. So if there's another country who can make steel cheaper than you, the theory goes, then you shouldn't make steel. You should make something else and sell that something else and then buy steel with it. And ultimately, by doing this, by making the things that you can make cheaper and better than other countries, you'll be able to sell that stuff, and ultimately, as the result, you'll be better off. You'll end up having more wealth in your country. That's the idea. And if I can, I'll show you, if you want to do a little more research on this. See if I can find a brief summary. It might be hard to. Investopedia says, comparative advantage is an economic law referring to the ability of any given economic actor to produce goods and services at a lower opportunity cost than other economic actors. One of the important concepts, that's not a very clear explanation. One of the important concepts in economic theory, comparative advantage lays out the case that all actors in all times can mutually benefit by cooperation and voluntary trade. It is also a foundational principle in the theory of international trade. They give an example here. So the idea, but the basic idea is each of comparative advantage is that each country should produce what it's best at producing, what it produces most efficiently. Because you can always trade whatever that is to other countries for more stuff. So if other countries produce steel more efficiently than you, but you produce computers more efficiently than them, then you should just make computers and don't make steel, and then trade some of your computers for steel. That's the basic idea. So your question, the initial question, the reason I'm going on and on about this is that our American Patriot had asked, why do these steel and aluminum tariffs, why are they detrimental to the economy? And one reason I gave that somebody could argue is that, well, if they cause a trade war and lots of countries imposing tariffs, that causes inflation, which is not good for the economy, and we won't be able to buy as much stuff. And there's also other negative effects of inflation on the economy. Also is another argument somebody could make is that if tariffs protect an industry, tariffs might protect an industry which is actually not comparatively efficient compared to other countries, and by protecting this industry, they hurt the economy because maybe we should be putting our resources into manufacturing something else that we're better at manufacturing more efficiently compared to other countries. This isn't an economics course, so we won't go that much into it. But that's a brief answer that could be given to your question as to a couple of reasons why someone might argue I'm not espousing one argument or the other. I'm just saying this is how somebody might argue that tariffs hurt the economy. David Opp says, if you lose an industry that you need for self-defense, that is a problem. So an argument given for these tariffs, as David says, is that, well, we need, for example, to be able to produce steel as a manner of national security. And if we lose our steel industry, that's bad for our national security. Now, there's currently debate. Different people have different views on whether these tariffs are necessary to protect our steel industry and whether, as a matter of national security, and whether the current state of our steel industry does threaten national security. That's debated. I've heard arguments on both sides. But thank you for raising that point, David. No place to hide now writes in, Trump has many Goldman people in his inner circle. He is ferreting them out. Will Wilbur Ross survive given his connection to the pig farm in Canada? Most people can't handle the truth. Now, I have to confess, I don't know what you're referring to. Don't know what that's about. I'll have to do some research. To see if there's any more updates here about Gary Cohn resigning. I'm not seeing much new here. George Stevenson, our viewer, says you can't buy steel from China if you are at war with them, period. Now note, George, the tariffs would not prevent us from buying steel with China. They would raise the price on it. Somebody on Periscope just wrote about China flooding U.S. market with steel. But the comments go by so fast, I didn't see it. Oh, I know what I should maybe do. If I'm on Periscope, what if I do this? No, that won't help. I was thinking if I turned my iPad vertically, will the comments stay on the screen for longer because it's vertical and not horizontal? I don't know, though. I'm dubious about this. Swoosh writes in, goodbye and so long, Cohn. So Swoosh is happy that Gary Cohn resigned. All right, I think at this point we're going to wrap up this stream about Gary Cohn resigning. We appreciate everybody writing in your comments and also for choosing Right Side Broadcasting. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, click the notifications bell on Facebook, on Twitter at RSB Network, on Periscope, RSBN TV. I'm at @Lookner on Twitter. I post about breaking news all the time. Follow me on Twitter @Lookner. Also, if you like Right Side Broadcasting, we are viewer supported. We rely on your support to stay on the air. So feel free to donate. You can donate by going to the bottom of the YouTube chat. Click on the $ at the bottom of the YouTube chat. That's how you donate. Or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. So again, Gary Cohn resigning. Ostensibly over the tariffs policy that President Trump is putting into place that Gary Cohn did not want. And he will be leaving in the next few weeks from the White House. Thank you again to our moderators, Real Frank, Roger Vega, Guinevere, JC, Jan, and Common Sense and Gleno on the website. Appreciate you moderating the chat. And Sweet Revenge 355 writes in, hello world. Well, there you go. Let's see, the comment doesn't stay on any longer. The comments on Periscope, they stay on the screen for about 5 seconds. So it's very hard for me to see them when people make them. Anyways, that's it. Thank you for saying thanks. Reed Castor, thank you for saying thank you, and Real Frank, and GTO Mama, Rocky Sanchez, and everybody else. History B, thank you, and everybody else in the chat room. All right, we're going to wrap this up now. If there's more breaking news tonight, we will, of course, come on the air and give it to you. But for now, that's our report on the resignation of Gary Cohn. We hope you all have a great night, and we hope to see you soon again for more news and live coverage here at Right Side Broadcasting. I am Steve Lookner. Have a good one.